There's one way to just completely ignore it and let the big tech companies dictate how this technology gets introduced to kids. You are doing a disservice to your students if you don't at least talk about it. And it's like sex ed in that if you don't talk about it, they're going to find out elsewhere. The future is going to be dictated by who knows how to talk to machines. People will have to know how to instruct.
Welcome to AI Truth Serum, your weekly antidote to the hype and doom of AI. I'm your host, Greg Shove, seven-time founder and CEO of Section AI. Every episode, I talk to people smarter than me about AI and its impact on how we live and work. And this episode, we're talking with Claire Zhao about AI in education. 2 episodes ago, we spoke with Dr. Zahar Yusuf about how AI can affect our cognitive performance. In fact, how we might lose our minds to AI instead of actually augmenting our minds. So what about AI in education? How do we actually leverage AI to make us smarter and learn? And what risks do we have to guard against? For this conversation, I invited Claire Zhao. She's a partner and AI lead at GSV Ventures. GSV is one of the leading investors in education technology startups. Claire is sitting every day at the intersection of AI, technology, and education, talking to hundreds of startups about how they'll use these technologies to hopefully improve the student experience. Welcome, Claire. Claire, great to see you again.
Hi, Greg. It's so great to see you as always.
I wanted to talk to you, Claire, because I'm confused and I'm hoping that you can unconfuse me.
I would be happy to. I feel like I play translator for the edtech world around all things AI, and I have time of my life being able to do that and learning alongside everyone.
So just tell us how you spend your days these days and how you got into this gig.
So I think zooming even out before I joined GSV, I'd always been interested in this intersection of education, technology, startups, had a weird mix of background between finance and tech, didn't know how to merge all of that. I thought education was an important space to build in. And so somehow landed at Graduate School of Education, and through that, got connected with Deborah Quazzo, who is the managing partner of GSV. I had known GSV as this firm that was at the forefront of investing in early stage edtech startups. So I'd always known the name, known about the summit, and there was an actual opportunity there to sit across both our platform through the ASU GSV Summit, as well as the investment team. So I joined them about 5 years ago, and over the years really developed a lot of relationships and tried to carve out a lane around AI and education. Even with the drop of GPT-2, you saw that something big was going to come for education. A lot of people were looking at education strictly from the lens of education. A lot of people were looking at AI strictly in the lens of AI. And there weren't that many people bridging the two. So decided to make that what I spent all my time on and started a newsletter, writing in that space, met a lot of amazing founders working on great startups in education and AI. And that's how I've started leading all of this.
Awesome. Do you like being a VC?
I do. I think it is an amazing job where you get to be a part of 100 different companies building. I think you get to do research and learn as a job, and I love that aspect of it. But it's also, I think, interesting because with the venture world, you assign a level of self-importance that you are putting capital into these startups and changing the world through that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the people doing the hardest job are the builders and the founders who
Sure.
you are backing. So that's also an interesting, I think, part of the work is like, how do you actually support these founders so that they can get to those big outcomes and build generational, life-changing businesses?
How many yeses is no's?
It depends. I think when you looked at 2021, 2022, there were a lot of companies coming to market, and it was definitely a very crowded, busy funding cycle. But I want to say every single year we see about, even just in the AI education world, 300 plus companies just building an AI in education. And we'll probably only align and partner with 3 to 4, 5 specifically in that vertical. That's obviously just for AI education.
Let's talk about that for a sec, though, just because I'm out raising money. And for the audience, GSV is an investor in Section, the company that I'm the CEO of. They invested in our Series A a long time ago in that 2021-22 frothy funding cycle. I'm out raising a Series B now, very different company, and will be a different fundraise process as well. But when you are hearing a pitch, Claire, how soon do you decide, I want to spend time here and pay attention, or I want to start reading my email? How fast is it for you personally to form an impression of a pitch?
It depends, is the honest answer. I don't think you can get a sense of a full person in 30 minutes, even, but I think directionally within even the first 10, 15 minutes, you can get a sense of how good someone is at laying out their vision and their storytelling and their ability to bring energy around this big idea that they have and why they need venture money for it. I think oftentimes we'll meet people who can definitely execute, can definitely build. Are they suited to be the CEO or founder of a company they think will fundamentally change the education landscape? That is a very different thing. And I think within 10 to 15 minutes, you can tell if they're veering in that direction or if they're really just looking to build a tool or build a smaller idea. I think when you meet someone who is building a big idea and they have spent enough time in the space and in many ways are maniacal about building this idea, you can tell within the first 10 to 15 minutes. We meet a lot of founders who fit in that former bucket of people who have a deep passion, and you can tell and you can see that passion. So I wouldn't say it's like swipe left, swipe right thing where a lot of people fall into either bucket, but I would say those are probably the key things we look for.
Yeah, I guess you're looking for businesses that actually should be raising venture capital too, right?
Yes.
So a lot of great companies and ideas and businesses out there that can be life-changing for the founders or entrepreneurs, but don't really require tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of founders this all the time is venture capital it sounds fancy and it's exciting to raise a big round, but it's also not the right vehicle for every company to grow, right? It is inherently artificial growth because you are just putting fuel on the fire. There has to be a spark that is going to grow into a very large fire. And so if you don't want to hold yourself to certain standards of 2xing, 3xing every single year, then there's many different ways to grow.
So let's talk about education, but specifically AI and education. So has the number of pitches obviously gone up the last couple, 3 years in terms of entrepreneurs wanting to use AI to fix, reform, disrupt education? What's going on right now?
Definitely. 2022, 2023, a lot of the companies that we were seeing were, I am an AI education company. And I think today, nobody is saying that I am an internet fintech company or I'm an internet education company. Mm-hmm. You just are a company that leverages digital or you leverage whatever horizontal technology. So I think right now we finally shifted to a world where AI is just seen as a standard. And sometimes that makes my job a little difficult because every company is an AI education company. Mm-hmm. But whether or not you have an external facing AI tool, at the end of the day, internally, all of these companies operationally are leveraging AI in some way.
And are these entrepreneurs focusing on any specific problem? Meaning, are they trying to help schools? Are they trying to help students? Are they trying to help parents? Is it all the above? Like, where are you seeing most heat or action in terms of the application of AI to the educational challenges?
I think all of the above. I think naturally there were a lot of people who went for the vision of building AI tutors. I think it makes sense. Like, you see this technology and it's like Promethean fire, right? You want to leverage that to scale one-to-one help, but it makes a ton of sense. So I think, saw an explosion of tutor-oriented applications, and I'm happy to go into that, both B2B and B2C. Ones, let me sell students an AI tutor, or let me sell schools an AI tutor for every student. We saw a lot of those, but I also think over the years, it's evolved such that you're even seeing interesting applications where a lot of the AI is much more focused on the back end of running a school. So they don't even care about AI interfacing with students. It's AI agents that help with enrollment, AI agents that help process financial aid documents. Like, all of that is boring side and back end side of running a school or running an institution. But we're actually seeing a lot of movement in those spaces as well. And I think finally now we're seeing not just this massive category of AI tutors. There's, I would say, more diversification of companies that are doing interesting stuff for AI for teachers specifically, AI for admin, AI for parents, some mix of building continuity between all of those different stakeholders, AI even for edtech companies. So like building AI infrastructure for edtech companies. I think we're finally seeing those evolutions.
But isn't the great hope here that we fix education and the student experience with AI? I mean, this is what we've been sold, right, by the AI companies. And in fact, all the frontier model AI companies have their own sort of student or study features even built into their products. Either it's good PR and or they generally care about students, probably both. But isn't this one of the ways that AI has been sold to us as a society, essentially, that like things like healthcare and education will be fixed, air quotation marks? What's your sense of that?
I'm of the stance that, like, any of these one-dimensional takes of AI will fix everything or AI sucks and we should not use it. I tend to veer away from either of those. I do think there's a lot of nuance where we are in a once in a lifetime, once in a humanity moment where for the first time ever, we are able to output intelligence. And we've never been able to do that. We've been able to augment our strength with machinery. We've been able to automate a lot of our work with traditional ML and the internet, but we've never been able to output literal intelligence, like create a work and sell service as work. So I think that is an insane moment, which means that we can now potentially scale one-to-one learning in a way that we've never been able to before. I think the opportunity is there. That being said, I think so much of the problems around education are not necessarily things for AI to solve. When you think about even just a person's education experience, more often than not, when you ask them what their favorite part of school, it isn't, oh, I love this really well written textbook or this very quick delivery of my AI tutor learning lesson. It's, oh, I loved meeting this classmate or I love this teacher. A lot of our memories and our formative moments in education are tied to around community. AI is not going to fix that or the lack of that in our education systems. What it can fix is hopefully alleviating some of the bureaucracy and the infinite tool usage that teachers have to deal with, jumping between tools, the admin work that teachers have to deal with, or it's things like we recently backed a company that is basically building continuity between family and the classroom, where parents get a 15-minute lesson plan on how they can micro tutor their kids. And over time, obviously through a whole week, 15 minutes every single day turns into a lot of instructional time. That takes time off of the back of teachers, parents. They get a personalized lesson plan that is based off of what's happening in school. They feel like they're involved. Before AI, in order to do that, a teacher would have had to sit down and manually write up a lesson plan for every single parent. Now that's automated and everybody feels like they're much more involved in the student's journey. Student gets much more personalized help from both their parent and their school. The school feels like the parents are involved. And so
do you think parents want to do that work?
Parents want to be involved in the education journey of their kids, obviously, but they don't have the ability to be in the classroom and have visibility into Claire is struggling with this exact part of fractions, right? Here's the 5 times she made this mistake. And all of that right now is siloed in classroom time versus home time. I think what you're going to see is an interesting, actually almost shift towards ambient AI education. And I think I have a lot of thoughts on how this will all evolve. But if you look at, for example, the healthcare space, we've actually made that jump from it largely being a reactive experience to something that's proactive. And you're able to build continuity between what's happening at home, what's happening at your doctor visits.
Just to say more, you mean like the AI is listening and taking notes, ambient AI in the kind of hospital or doctor visit experience? Is that basically what you're referring to?
A little bit, but I think more so that we have data that speaks to each other. So I think of the massive shift towards Apple Watches, Aura Rings, Whoops. For the first time ever, people are taking charge and have this level of ability to constantly track their status in these different health categories. Before all of this, it was like the only way I had any sort of feedback around my health was by going to a doctor or very vague levels of I feel this way, but I have no quantifiable way of measuring all of this. That's how I see the current education spaces. As a student, I know I might be struggling with this concept, but none of that is quantifiable. I don't know what part exactly to tackle. However, I am doing all this school time with a teacher. You are getting that sort of feedback. But again, there's no continuity between all of those things. And I think in the same way that the healthcare world has made a jump from tracking your health to be this system where you have agency and you can be proactive about it and all the data speaks to each other, I think education, hopefully with AI, can make that jump as well.
That would be amazing, I think, if the student wanted that, and I guess the parent to some extent, depending on obviously the age of the student.
Yeah.
And connecting all those stakeholders, as you call them, that would make sense to me. But I want to really focus here more because it's probably the question I get asked the most, Claire, whenever I speak at conferences or anywhere really, which is, what about our kids? Are they going to stop? Are they going to stop learning? Are they going to just cheat with AI? And this is I opened with the comment that I'm confused, and here's what I'm confused about. I read last week, New York Times, two different stories, right? Two different professors. I think it was one professor from UT Austin saying, I'm getting 300 essays every class and they're identical. And another professor, I think from a liberal arts school on the East Coast saying, oh, this is great. I've learned how to integrate AI into the student experience in my classroom, and it's expanding the minds and the kind of student experience. So we're obviously hearing both, as we would expect. I think we're getting probably more cheating than expansion. So again, what's your take on what's going on? At what level? Is it happening already at middle school, high school, college? Tell me where you think we're really at today and what will need to happen for this not just to be chaos for the next 10 years, because it's feeling like it's just going to be chaos in the classroom for a decade or more. So talk me out of that point of view, because I find that depressing.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is chaos, and I don't want to undermine all the chaos that educators have to deal with today. Like when we talk about why haven't educators come up on AI, I'm like, they're dealing with so many different things, not to mention traditional education problems. They're also dealing with student cheating. So it's a very quickly changing ecosystem. So much of the cheating conversation has been focused on finding AI detectors, and it's almost been like this arms race of, I have an AI detector that's going to catch the AI, and then the students are finding an anti-detector that like if you go online and search AI humanizer, there are 50 plus options that help you humanize AI content.
It's an arms race, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's just playing whack-a-mole for the wrong reasons. We have to go to the root of the issue, which is that we have assessments that are very easily gamed. What are we measuring if they can so easily use AI to just complete a multiple choice question? Like maybe that says more about how we've structured the way that we measure kids than the cheating itself. And I think cheating has always existed. Previous generation was like you pass notes around, and then the next generation is you have Course Hero and Chegg. Despite those being education platforms, a lot of people use those platforms to cheat, or you find answers on Reddit, you find answers online. That has always existed. Obviously, I do think AI has changed the scale at which you can.
Yeah. Never at this scale, never at this low cost of friction, right?
But I also think there's questions of like, is a written essay the best way to measure someone's thinking? I do agree. Like I've personally benefited a lot from the essay writing process of creating an outline and laying out my thoughts and reorganizing them. I do think that is a helpful process, but is the way that we should be measuring students the final output of an essay? I don't know if that's caught up with modern day. And I think we're seeing actually interesting ways where there's less of a fixation on this like final score and more of fixation on how to actually even use AI to measure process. So we recently invested in a company that, as opposed to recruiters getting Claire got a 80% leak code score for her technical interview, what you get instead is they built a filtering layer that sits in your IDE as you're building and working through a technical interview. And what you get as an output is a explanation of Claire started doing this. She spent probably half the interview time on this part. She went back and fixed it. And based off of her coding style and how I've seen her lay it out, she aligns well with all the other engineers that you've hired. And so that's a really interesting example of actually, let's stop focusing on
just the outcome.
Arms race. And the outcome, when we have tools now that allow you to actually see people work and analyze it, and we can actually scale the assessment part. There's just a whole unexplored space. And I think so much of the attention has been misplaced in this output whack-a-mole when there's all this opportunity to change how we assess people, how we create assignments. Like I think now you have AI that can infinitely build different project-based learning experiences. That obviously used to require a lot of human work to build project-based experiences for every single kid. Now you can have AI do that. And so what does that mean for changing how we even build our learning journeys? I think the conversation should be much more focused on that. It's not even an AI issue. I think there's a lot of different converging forces coming at this generation.
Yeah, but let's focus on AI. You're the mentor to a junior or a sophomore in high school. Maybe they've already got a little bit addicted to AI in terms of doing their homework. And you're sitting with them and you've got 30 minutes or whatever, and you're there to help them understand how to use AI, get through high school successfully, and maybe get into a good college if that's what they want to do. What's your advice to them on how they should be using AI or not?
I think they should definitely be testing and using AI and learning about this technology. I think the future is going to be dictated by who knows how to talk to machines. We are entering a world where people will work alongside agents. People will have to know how to instruct these machines to work. And so work will always exist. And I think I want to remove some of the fear around like all the jobs are going away. I don't think we're going to be in a place where we're all on UBI and there are no jobs available for a couple of decades, but I think success in work will look like being able to speak to machines. And a good starting point is by not sticking your head in the sand and saying that this is a fad technology and it'll all come to pass.
Yeah. What's your advice in terms of how they're going to learn, or what should they be doing in terms of using AI in their learning journey? They're at high school. They probably don't want to spend a lot of time doing these assignments or this homework. What's your advice to them? Or are they going to just basically have GPT do high school for them?
I think of GPT as your infinitely intelligent tutor partner. And there are things that you can outsource to it to do your homework for you, or you can learn from it. And I think it's the same as like having your older brother help or older sister help you with your homework, right? Like, you know that you can go to your older sibling for help with. And those are the right moments to actually ask them to help grow your thinking, expand your thinking. And there are moments where you might go to them and say, help me do this problem. That's where the education system comes in. It's not necessarily dictating what to use and banning technologies, but rather giving them, guiding them to actually build that personal lighthouse around, like, when do I use AI? When do I not use AI? For what sort of tools can actually cultivate my metacognition versus what tools, when am I actually using this as a crutch?
I love that frame, Claire. I like that. When you would go ask for others for help. But if you're going to cheat, you're going to cheat. And there's always a certain percentage of a class or of a group that are going to go cheat, right? And then now we've given them the ultimate cheat machine. But if you're going to try to do the work yourself, but you will go and get help from others, maybe that's a great frame for advice to this high schooler.
The best ways that I've learned has been some combination of good old Google search plus AI. And I don't rely on one tool too much. I think actually there was an interesting study, not published yet. We were speaking to researchers at Harvard Graduate School of Education. These are master's students, but they gave them ChatGPT, Google, and just their thoughts alone. And the prompt was basically, you have a controversial take. Do research on it with one of these tools and write another essay on how your views have changed. And what they found was that obviously people who didn't do any more research stayed the same. They found that people who use ChatGPT actually became much more extreme in their views because these systems are extremely reaffirming and they're inherently sycophantic. They're trying to please you. So if you say that I have this hot take, they will make it an even more hot take. People who ended up using Google as a tool for their research landed much more in the middle
because they were exposed to more opinions in there.
Exactly. Right. And I think there is merit in the 10 blue links. And so for any high schooler, as you think about your consumption of knowledge, just remembering that there is so much value in being exposed to not just one chatbot or not just one new system or one news source. It is going out there and reading all the books, going out there and looking through all the 10 blue links, and then forming your own opinion based off of that.
Yeah. And then, so what would your advice be to a parent of a high schooler? What's their role in this? If this is going to be chaos for a while, and it's obviously very fast changing and everything we just talked about, what's the parent's role in this, and what's your advice to a parent?
I think the best thing that parents can do is to raise good humans who want to engage in civil discourse, who know when to use AI and when not to use AI, who ultimately recognize that AI is a tool and it's not a fix for everything. What I worry a little bit about this upcoming generation is like that combination of social media plus AI is we are entering a world where if people want to only engage with their one view of the world, they can shut off and they will have infinite virtual people to talk about. And all these people will be like, yes, man, on everything they say. And so I worry a little bit about the ways that humanity as a collective will engage with one another. I fear that we have humans who won't be able to talk to each other anymore because there's a much easier option of just talking to AIs all the time. So
I agree.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on, okay, you're the parent of a high schooler. Listen, as parents, we normally talk about drugs, we talk about sex, we talk about drinking and driving, we talk about sometimes, I don't know, guns and violence. Like, we have these talks with our kids, right? So now we're having the AI talk with the kid. What are we saying in the AI talk? Because we got it wrong with social media. And I think parents had a role there or didn't realize they had a role and probably should have. So what's the talk about AI if you're talking to a kid in school?
I think probably things like, it is okay to speak with AI systems, but building unhealthy dependencies on them is probably something to watch out for. I think we're seeing not that much parental oversight on a lot of this. Like, I think it's one thing to, for example, speak to a historical figure and learn history from them for a lesson, but it's another to build like a romantic relationship with a fictional character. So I think watching out for that. I think there's a lot of important emphasis on the new world that we're entering. We're hearing a lot of stories, unfortunately, about students creating deep fakes of
Hmm.
each other.
Hmm.
I think that is an unfortunate reality of like currently where guardrails that we have on this technology. And so I think it's things like understanding what is truth and what is augmented or altered and being able to discern reality from fiction. I
Hmm.
think that's something to watch out for.
Yeah. Are you worried about addiction in terms of AI? Sounds
Yeah,
like you are.
yeah, I think so. I think you are already seeing some levels of addiction to AI as a system, even from adults. I think there was a really interesting article a couple of days ago about how when character AI shut down their under 18 usage, kids with very tearful goodbyes.
Sure. If you have a subscription business model, that means it's an addiction business model, basically.
Yeah, and Meta, I think there were leaked docs that they were like, we're okay with getting people addicted to our Meta AI systems as long as it's improving our retention and time spent
Right.
on platform.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then the final piece of advice is for educators. What would your advice be to a teacher today, or to maybe even a school superintendent, or just someone who's responsible for delivering education? What would your advice be?
I would say it is a difficult time to navigate. And I think if anyone is hounding you for not using enough AI, I think those people haven't been in the classroom and don't realize how difficult of a moment it is right now. That being said, I also think there is an interesting opportunity today to be the people who shepherd this technology to this next generation. There's one way to just completely ignore it and let the big tech companies dictate how this technology gets introduced to kids. Or you can play a role in shaping how kids view this technology. And I would much rather teachers who have spent time, actual time with these kids and know them as humans, to be ones who are exposing them to AI and building that digital literacy and AI literacy, rather than them learning about it online or through their friends or through Snapchat AI or Meta AI. Even if a teacher does not like the technology, you are doing a disservice to your students if you don't at least talk about it. And it's like sex ed, in that if you don't talk about it, they're going to find out elsewhere. And you'd rather be the person that is responsible and gives them at least some sort of guidance around navigating this very confusing technology. So yeah, that would be my advice to
Yeah.
educators.
So it sounds like you're empathetic, though, right? In terms of the reality of being a teacher today, and we don't have enough of them.
Yeah, it's a very difficult job. And the other thing I would maybe say for the education space is I think a lot of people have been focused on AI for AI co-pilots, which are great, but a lot of those tools feel like we're just doing the same things in the education ecosystem, faster, cheaper, better, right? More lesson plans, more content, more tutors, and that's great, but maybe we also need to take a step back and actually think from first principles, like what is the purpose of a classroom? What is the purpose of a human to student relationship? Like how do we actually build AI around the first principles as opposed to just tacking AI onto these systems where we've been doing them in not so great ways? I think there's an opportunity to actually restart the conversation. So I am generally positive. I wouldn't be in the business of investing in the future and technology if I wasn't positive on all this. But I think cautiously optimistic in that this is not something where we just build fast and break things. I think there is an opportunity here to rethink the education system from first principles, but we have to do it with the right people at the table. And it can't just be the big AI labs building things without engaging actual educators or engaging with the students themselves. I think sometimes people underestimate how important that student voice is. Maybe students don't want this, but generally, I think I am bullish on this technology. I think it is, just even from a science standpoint, we are potentially entering a world where like we can run self-driving R&D and self-driving research in multiple domains. And you're already seeing this with like Google unlocking cancer therapy pathways. Like that is exciting. It wasn't even just testing a hypothesis. It came up with a hypothesis on it. I think from a science level, from a humanity level, I think this technology is really exciting. I just want to make sure that when we are building for it, especially in the space of education, it is always human-centered and that we have the right people at the table when we're having these conversations.
And those right people are the students and not the Department of Education, apparently, at the federal level, because it's being disbanded. So
yes.
Who do you think is going to be at the table and needs to be at the table in this conversation? Otherwise, big tech decides how we learn with their AIs.
I actually think a lot of people I meet from the education groups of these big tech companies, they are extremely well-intentioned, they want to have conversations with educators or students. So I think it's important to have them at the table because someone is going to build it. And if this kind of whole conversation around this race to AGI proves true, the train is coming and there's no stopping it, but you can steer where it goes. And so I think having these AI labs at the table, I think having actual students, parents,
So
teachers.
this is an important insight for the rest of us because you talk to these people and I don't. And I think it's easy to be cynical about big tech and therefore about the AI companies. You're meeting with and talking with the people inside these companies, OpenAI and others, that are responsible for their educational product services or efforts. And you feel they are genuine in their efforts to make this work for education. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think a lot of the individuals who work in especially the education groups, like I'm glad that you have former teachers and former edtech builders joining these AI labs because I'd rather them build it than an engineer that's never been taught in a classroom before. Again, I think it's hard to navigate when you do have these big AI labs. One person is not going to change the overall org's direction. But for example, ChatGPT teachers being free for 2 years. I think there's probably some commercial element of offering it for free to get as many educators on there as possible. But I also think, hey, we've never had teachers have the most advanced models. And for the first time ever, you're just giving that away for free for all these educators. Like, I'd rather educators have free access to the latest pro models.
So Claire, you see a future where we should be able to navigate or thread the needle where kids don't end up dumber, that they are prepared either to go to college or to go to work. But it probably also does require some fundamental rethinking of the current system. That's how I'd summarize what I'm hearing from you. A degree of optimism, but a degree of pragmatism or realism around just slapping AI in the current system might provide some short-term gains and losses in terms of cheating. But really what has to happen here is probably a reinvention to some extent of education, and maybe the same for healthcare and these other places where AI is going to live every day, and that will take longer.
Yeah, I'm generally optimistic, and I believe in humanity's ability to overcome. We as a species have overcome so many things over thousands of years, and we became the dominant species in evolution. I believe in our ability to take on any challenge, and AGI is probably one of the biggest challenges that will come for us as a collective. But I believe in our ability to adapt. We have always, from a labor conversation, we have always adapted and found work to do. The work today that we do looks very different from the work that we as humanity did 300 years ago. I think that will shift. But to your point, we can't be doing the same things that we're doing today, and there needs to be a massive reshift. I don't have all the answers on what that reshift and transformation looks like, but I have faith in smart people like your team and all the founders that we're backing and educators who are having this conversation that hopefully we all shift in the right direction.
Okay, one last question. Are we in a bubble? And if so, when does it burst?
I get this question a lot. I think we're in a bubble. I think there's a lot of bubble behavior, a lot of financial round tripping at the AI infrastructure level. I'll say I don't think we're like at a bubble in any of the applications that we're touching, but really in the infra, you could justify that some of it is traditional vendor financing. Yes, we had an internet bubble. There were the web vans and the pets.com that just failed spectacularly. But if you look directionally, everything that people thought about the .com boom came true. Like you had the Amazons, you had the Airbnbs, you had the Chewies of the world emerge. My mindset with all of this is like anything AI is that we tend to overestimate the effects of a technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And I think all the things that we're thinking about today, it might not come in the 3-year, 5-year AI 2027 timeline. It probably will come in multiple decades. And directionally, I think these things will happen. I am a big believer in it, but I don't think it will come in the timelines that a lot of people
that makes sense.
saying.
As I remind everybody, Claire, when that bubble burst, the internet kind of e-commerce bubble, Amazon stock dropped 95%. Jeff Bezos was ridiculed for a couple of years. In fact, Wall Street Journal called his company Amazon.bomb. And he had to scramble. The company had to scramble for a couple of years. We know what happened after. They put their heads down, executed for 10 more years, and stole market share from everybody else who left the business, basically.
Or even if you think about Google as this generational company today, they're like what, the 6th, 7th player in search. Like I think things will fail, but the category itself will exist. It's just who builds it.
Great. Claire, listen, I'm still a little confused around why some teachers or professors are getting classes that 300 students are cheating and another professor or teacher is getting a class that maybe has found a way to use AI to actually help them learn?
I think a good challenge is like the current system is set up such that it's like, yeah, I do 3 prompts and I can get an essay for my teacher, and all 300 kids are doing that. But if you look at the most widely played video games in the world right now, kids willingly sign up for these challenges and experiences, and they don't cheat their way through it. They have cheat codes if they want to use them. We have to look much more at like the form factor of how we're delivering this learning, right? It probably isn't an essay. Maybe it is something that feels a lot more like a video game than a multiple choice question.
Feels the same challenge in life for all of us, right? We need friction, not too much, but enough that we feel it, whether it be relationships, money, and learning. Thanks, Claire, for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Greg. Always a pleasure.
Here are my takeaways from our conversation with Claire. First of all, for students, obviously don't cheat, or at least not too much. I liked her frame about how to think about AI. It's like your smarter, older sister or brother, or maybe parent. But think about AI in that way. When you're stuck, you go to someone for some help, go to AI to get some help. For teachers, I appreciated Claire's empathy for how tough that job is before AI came along and how much tougher it is with AI. Obviously, we want our teachers getting access to the best AI tools, and some of the AI companies are making that possible. What we're going to need is more time for builders, creators, entrepreneurs to build new educational experiences with AI at the core of them, but with friction for the student. We're in this transition moment, and I do think it's chaos and will be for a while. For parents, it's time to have the AI talk. We talk to our kids about sex, drugs, drinking and driving, and so on. It's time to talk to them about AI. It's really easy with a prompt to get an answer, probably too easy. And I think we do have a model here, and I like the way Claire reminded us that kids are okay with friction. They're okay with friction in their video games, and hundreds of millions of kids play video games and have to sort of progress to the next level by dealing with this friction, if you will. Do not outsource to your school or to your kid. You own a responsibility here as a parent to help kids understand how to effectively use AI so they don't get dumber, they get a little bit smarter by the time they graduate. Thanks for listening to AI Truth Serum. Next episode, I'll be talking with Brian Merchant, author of the newsletter and book, Blood in the Machine. I read Brian every week to remind me of the downsides of these technologies and what we need to do so we can harness the upside and not suffer too much at the hands of big tech. In the meantime, you can find me at gregshove.com and sign up for my new newsletter, AI Truth Serum. And if you got a second right now, leave me a rating and review to help us grow the podcast. And we'll talk soon.